Alrighty, everybody, it is currently Saturday, November 1st, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from a sopping wet bathroom. I mean, just drenched, covered in water everywhere. Luckily, it's not from the toilet though, and that is a real situation that I found myself in this morning. But before we get into that, I do have some rather devastating news that I have to share after the recording of the last pod. Um, we, when something bad happens, we always say I found out, or this happened to me. It doesn't just happen to you. It happens to all the people around you. Who you choose to share your life with. So we found out that the copper stash got jacked, dude. Someone, look. Do I have my opinions about who the suspects might be? Yeah, I got a few people in mind, um, who I think might have grabbed that fresh pile of copper, like we're living in fucking Mesopotamia in 1800 BC or whatever. But it did it did get taken too, and not the stuff we wanted it to get taken. Not like the super cheap, shitty stuff that you're just gonna like dump into a big tub and get like $500 for or whatever. The good stuff got taken, dude. I mean, we have like specialized buckets to carry this stuff around, and that's how valuable it is. And it got stole. Probably about $1,000 worth of it. They didn't take it all. I don't know what the idea was behind that, and I don't understand it. It's like if you're gonna take it, take it. You know what I mean? If you're gonna go for the gold, go for the gold. But or I guess in this case, go for the copper. you know, that's how you know your life isn't going well. You're not going for the gold. You're not going for the silver. You're not even going for bronze. You're going for copper. But this particular person decided to go for the copper, and they got it. I mean, quite easily. I didn't even know. I just assumed my boy needed some cash, and he went up there and sold it. And so I was like, "How much you get for that?" Because we split the money and stuff, and I just assumed he forgot to tell me or something like that. But but he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "There's like a lot of copper missing from the stash." And he was like, "Dude, I literally have not touched it. I didn't even know you were here." Um, and so yeah, it did get jacked, dude. It did get stolen. And I'm a little upset about it, dude. I am a little upset about it, but I figured out the strat. I think I really did. First of all, bike locks. I'm just gonna bike lock like 3 buckets together, and these are like 5-gallon buckets. And I'm just gonna bike lock like 3 of those things together, and that's like 300 pounds. No one's gonna be able to carry that, so I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, it did get stolen, did get got. But look, that's just gonna happen sometimes. You know what I mean? When you're in that business, and I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. To be fully fucking honest, it's not. And my boy, he doesn't even live in like that bad of a neighborhood. It's not a super nice neighborhood, but it's in like one of the wealthiest counties in America. So it really can't be that bad. I mean, but it's not great though. It's not a great neighborhood. So there's always people walking back and forth, and one of his neighbors is like this old lady who trains possums, and his other neighbor is a fucking like drive-through smoke shop. So there's always people just walking back and forth through there all day. So I assume one of them saw the bag, or it might have been someone else. Not gonna say who. I might bring it up to him, but that person might have also been the one who took it. I'll just say this: this person has a history of stealing copper. So I'm also talking quietly for this episode, doing my sexy Barry White voice because I am in my dorm room right now. That's where I'm at, and I feel comfortable recording right now in the dorm room because my roommate is gone. He took his Xbox with him, which I mean, for him, the amount he plays on that thing, dude, that's like his, like I don't know, his passport or something like that. That's like his ID. If he's going somewhere and he's staying there, he's gonna be taking that with him. It's kind of like a retainer or something. He just needs it there. It's his security blanket, which I do understand. I've been there before, dude. I've packed up my PS5 and taken it to my parents' house for like a 5 day, Thanksgiving break or whatever the fuck. So I'm not blaming him too much for being addicted to the box. But he did he did take the Xbox with him to wherever he went. I don't know. He just comes and goes. He's mysterious. He's like I don't know, a specter or something like that. It's just, where is this dude? I know where he's at. He's with his girlfriend. So maybe his girlfriend's finally gonna let him move back in. Which, God, that would be great. That's I, I want his girlfriend to like let him back in more than I want a girlfriend, just like in general myself. Just the gift of being alone is the ultimate gift. If he asks like, what do you want for Christmas? Just like 7 days, dude. Give me just 7 days alone in a room by myself. For most people, and quite frankly for me as well, if anyone has ever listened to this podcast ever, 7 days alone does drive you kind of insane. But I don't know. I like being insane. And everyone's insane. Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people are alone, even when even if they have like friends and stuff like that, just because of phones or whatever. I'm not going to try to be deep, dude. This is literally a podcast episode where I'm ranking races. So it's not, we're not going to be getting philosophical on them or anything like that. And I don't know. I guess I'll preface this before I even get into it at all. This is a joke. This is a dumb, shitty, like edgy 4chan joke that other people have made 10,000 times. I'm not the first person to do this, and probably not, I'm definitely not the funniest to do it, and I'm definitely not the smartest to do this stupid bit. But I was like, I don't know. I just felt like it was a message from God. It was like, your roommate's not here. He took the Xbox with him. This is a sign. This is a sign that, I got to make hay while the sun shines. Which, never understood that saying. You don't make hay, it grows, right? Hay grows, and then you cut it, and then you make it into hay bales, but you don't make the hay yourself. Hay is it. I don't know who made that saying, but it clearly wasn't someone who understood what hay is, and that's true of a lot of, the sayings and some of like the bigger ideas that exist in society. Like people have like made this point to death, but like communism was made by a guy who didn't work. Right? Just like the saying, make hay while the sun shines, wasn't it probably wasn't invented by a dude who was a hay farmer or whatever. Because if he was, he would understand you don't it's not someone isn't there like putting each individual blade of grass into the ground or whatever. Not how that thing works at all. So I don't know, maybe that's a little eye-opening, being like, yeah, is what this person is talking about, is it like important? Maybe, but like, I don't know. You just, a lot of these ideas and shit in society, they come from people who don't really live in the real world, which I, I don't live in the real world either. You know what I mean? So I can't criticize them too much. But it's just like academics and stuff like that, like people who have literally spent their entire lives in school, you know, and not in like a cool, like, guy who never like moved past spring break of senior year of high school, who's like a debilitating alcoholic who dates like questionably aged women, not in like a cool way like that. But like people who are just like, yeah, I just love sitting in a classroom and being taught. Like if you're a lifelong learner in the sense that you're, reading a different book every week or every day even. There's people out there, dude, I think my mom reads a different book every week. I don't think reading a book every week is that hard. But like the people like that are just like learning throughout their lives, that's one thing. But people that like go to school throughout their whole lives, yeah, that's like a different thing entirely. Like school, And I'm not one of those people that's like, "Fucking I got my education from the streets," or whatever, like, that's also dumb. But it's also dumb to be like, "I'm gonna spend my entire life in in." I don't think it's dumb, but I think the idea that that makes you smart or, like, better at anything other than specifically what you're doing is, like, I don't know, it's kinda fucking crazy to me. You know, it's like, these highly educated people, it's like if you have a PhD in, like, I don't know, like literature or anthropology or whatever, then I'm sure you know a whole, like, fuck ton about that subject. I'm sure you know about, like, all the history of it, like, all the big names, Johann von Strasberg or whatever. I assume you know all that. But, like, I don't know, I think it makes them, like, better at other things too, and it's like, no. It having a PhD in anthropology doesn't allow you to understand, the economy or whatever any better. And I think that's, like, the big issue, right? Like, you never hear, I don't know, like, a fucking plumber or whatever giving his 2 cents about, I don't know, whatever the fuck, and actually, that's not even true. That's that's not true at all. Blue collar guys actually seem to be some of the most opinionated people in society, all things considered. But like no one takes them seriously, right? No one's like, dude, my fucking plumber, he was telling me if Jerome Powell gets fired, then the whole system's going down, right? No, you might hear that and be like, all right, yeah, man, whatever. But like if you heard like someone being like, "Oh, I have a PhD," and they said the same thing, you would take it more seriously. But in reality, a plumber and a person with a PhD, in history, right? Both of those people are experts, but not experts at everything. But I think, the ethos of academia kind of leads people to believe that um highly educated people are experts in everything when they're not, dude, right? Y- And I think like a plumber is a good comparison because a plumber spends his entire adult life, figuring out how pipes work, which that is y- not a particularly difficult subject, but still. And I don't know, I just don't see that any differently from someone who spends their entire life trying to figure out about, the Khoisan people of Southern Africa. I just don't see a difference. Not much of a difference between those two types of people. They're both experts in a very niche thing, but I think just because of, you know, whatever the fuck, people are going to take the academic more seriously when it comes to certain things when in reality they might not they're they're not an expert in that or other thing. They're an expert in this very specific thing. And I would say they're even less of an expert because of other things because they're an expert in this super specific thing, right? Like you only have so much brain power, to dedicate to whatever, right? And so these people that have PhDs and whatever the fuck, a lot of their brain power and a lot of their memory and shit is not corrupted by, but like taken up by the specific thing that they learned, right? Whether it's like, 18th century English literature, or whatever, chemistry. Like a lot of their brain power is taken up by that shit. And I'm sure they're smarter than like the average person, but they're not that much smarter to where they can be, you know, these experts in everything. And maybe there was a time when that was possible, like in the 1700s, but now, no. Shit is way too fucking complicated for there to be, like true, like Benjamin Franklin. He was a polymath, which means he was like an expert in all sorts of different things. And that could work back when shit was a little bit more simple. But now there's too much shit going on. It's too complicated. There's not going to be any more of those types of people in my personal opinion. And speaking of types of people, this episode is about ranking the races. Okay. So I have 10 here. I think it's 10. I'm not going to count it. But we have Jew, Black, African. I decided to delineate between the two for some reason, just because I feel like African is just different than black. And then we have Arab, white, Latino, Aboriginal. We're talking about the Australian boys, Asian, American Indian, and then regular Indian. And anyone, anyone that's ever listened to this before can probably figure out who's going to be near the top and who's going to be near the bottom. All right, it is what it is, and we're not. I do feel like I broke it down into like some subgroups, but I feel like we're going to try to stay pretty general here. Really, the only one that I think is like a controversial call is black and African, but I don't know, dude. Africans are just. I'm not going to say they're funnier than black Americans, but Africans are fucking hilarious, dude. Especially because I noticed this recently because I was watching a ton of like clips of African people just being African, like clips like clips from them, in their version of Congress or like on TV or on radio. Everyone's seen these videos before. Um but they're so funny and I was like, but a lot of them talk so like formally, you know, maybe not like necessarily like super highly educated, but they talk in a very formal way. And I was just like, why do Africans talk like that? And I think I kind of like, and maybe this is wrong, but you know how they say like the Boston accent is the closest thing to like the old school British accent from that time because it was like this microcosm that survived? I think that's like kind of similar to like African, like the way African people speak English. Because you got to remember, a lot of those African countries, probably like over half, a fuck ton of them, used to be British colonies, right? And so I think that their version of English never like changed the way everyone else's version of English was, or the way everyone else's version of English did, from like whether it's like probably like the mid 1900s, it it never really changed from that time period, or it didn't change like a whole lot, right? And maybe different aspects of it did change, but like the formal way in which they speak, like the words they choose to use, and like the order that they put them and all that stuff, that didn't change from when it was like, imperial British dudes rolling over. Dudes with big old mustaches and safari hats being like, "You are now property of the queen," or whatever. I don't think it like changed a whole bunch from that time period. I don't know, that could be wrong. I could be misinterpreting it. Or maybe it's like maybe some of them like English is their second language, but like then why are they speaking it to like other like African people or like people from their country, right? Whether it's like the Congo or Uganda or whatever. Like why are they speaking English to those other people, right? Wouldn't they be speaking, French or Swahili or whatever it is? I don't know. So I do think it might be like a remnant of the past that never changed the way, other English dialects, I don't know, changed. But it is fucking hilarious, dude. It's always the funniest fucking thing. And it's not just the words they use. Like the inflection of their voices, it has like the cadence of a Shakespeare play or something like that. Like it's so dramatic and romantic. It's fucking hilarious, dude. If you haven't seen any of these videos, just look up like Africa Core compilation and it's it's just the funniest thing on earth because it'll be a dude in like no shoes on, fucking torn up cargo pants, a fucking like sweat stained t-shirt that is like clearly misfitting of him that he just like got from a charity drop off or whatever, and he'll be talking, it'll be in an African accent, but it'll fully sound like something out of Shakespeare or like a Winston Churchill speech or something like that. And like the dichotomy of that is so funny, and even without the dichotomy it's still pretty fucking funny because it's not there's like people that do talk like that, you know, and like in America, and you can just tell it's so fucking forced. But with these guys, It's just you can tell it's natural, and it's so fucking funny. The cadence, everything about it is hilarious. And so, that and a few other reasons, like, I don't whatever. That's why I decided kind of to break up African versus Black. Like, I just don't I don't know, it's just not it's not the same to me, and, like, not even in the way that, like, a white American is different than a white European, it's just I don't know, I don't think they're I just think they're too different to be considered the same thing, which damn, this is a joke. I'm not trying to get into any fucking, what's that called? Phrenology or whatever, like measuring skull shapes and shit. This is all most of it. I'm not going to say all of it, but most of it is a joke. Um, and yeah, so that's how I decided to split that whole thing up. And yeah, but we're not going to get into that quite yet because we do got to talk about the water leak. So I woke up last night. I went to bed at like maybe 1, or I fell asleep at 1 in the morning, dude. I was in bed since like 10 p.m. And I'm not an insomniac. I kind of am an insomniac, but not like fully. Like I can fall asleep in like an hour or two most nights, if I really need to, after getting into bed. But last night I just kept looking at my phone and watching TV and stuff like that. Even though I was tired, I was like actively in bed, like scrolling through YouTube videos, being like, "Ooh, which one should I watch?" And so I went to bed pretty late, and I've just been tired lately. I don't know. It might be from starving myself or from I don't maybe just not getting enough sleep. I don't know what it is, but I've just been super fucking tired lately. And so I woke up and I was like I heard like a noise or something. And so I woke up and I was like, "Fuck, dude, why is someone up at like 4 in the morning or whatever?" And then I checked my phone and it was like 8 a.m. And so I was like, "Fuck. I I gotta get out of bed. I don't have to stay awake, but I just gotta get out of bed, dude. It's 8 fucking a.m. I ain't a bum. I gotta get out of bed." And so I went to the bathroom and I looked into the bathroom and like my towel, my bathroom towel that I use to dry my gooch after I get out was just like fully laid out on the ground. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I don't know. Did someone like throw up or whatever? And then I stepped on it and it was sopping wet. And I was just like, oh, fuck it, dude. I don't even know how that happened. So I take a piss and then I go back to bed and I wake up a little bit later and I was like, oh, the ceiling is leaking. that's that's why somebody put that towel down. And so I went and I told like the RA or whatever, and someone showed up and like fixed it. And the dude who was fixing it, I was like talking to him and stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, I figured out what the problem is. It's not a pipe or anything. It's the AC unit." And I was like, "We don't have like central AC in the ceiling." Or it wasn't the AC unit, it was like the condenser, it was something like that. And he's like, that's what's broken and that's why it's leaking. And I was like, we don't have central AC. And he's like, no, you do. And I was like, fuck it. Okay, I guess we do. And the reason why it was leaking was because I put the fridge right next to the thermostat, and I guess the fridge was like super hot, and so it was heating the shit out of the thermostat. But I don't know. That whole story didn't make sense. But he was like taking it apart, and I was like, I guess it just overfilled with water or something. And as he's like taking it apart, he goes, "Look at this right here." And I was like, it was just a sheet of fucking ice that like attached itself to this condenser or whatever. And I was like, "Oh yeah." No, that one, that's fully on us. We got to take, or I guess on me, I got to take credit for that one, dude. I got to go a little bit ISIS here and take credit. It was just a full, like a 10-pound block of ice had attached itself to this thing. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I assumed it was like, I don't know, like hair was clogging the drain or whatever. No, it was a 10-pound block of fucking ice. And so yeah, that's why we had a fucking soaking wet bathroom this morning. I mean, just everywhere. And thank God it wasn't a clogged toilet. Thank God, dude, because I think plungers are like a lie, you know. I truly think they are because I've used them before, and like 90% of the time, it's just you wait and then it goes down. And I know how to use a fucking plunger. Don't hit me with you don't know how to use a plunger. I know how to fucking use a plunger. All right. But the turds, my turds are just too powerful. They just have to like soak in there and fester and wait, and then they could finally be pushed out, and the toilet will start working again. But yeah, that's the reason for the soaking wet bathroom this morning. But I guess we'll just get into it. You know what I mean? Get into the rankings, get into the nitty gritty, really figure out. And I'm like I said, this is a shitty, edgy like 4chan joke that a bunch of people have made 1,000 times. But it's also I don't know if you guys are familiar with history or even currently what's going on in the world, but there is people that are currently like seriously trying to figure out like who's number one, you know, and that's just like what a genocide is. A genocide is just being like, dude, we're number one and we're so hardcore number one, you can't even be here anymore. So there are still people trying to figure out who is number one, and I'm gonna figure it out here, dude. I think I know who's number 10 and who's number one, but I think the number one spot is really up for debate, and I do think the number 10 spot is up for debate as well. So we'll start with number 10. All right, let's just start from the bottom, get it out of the way. I think the two groups that are going head to head for the 10 spot, this is the loser bracket here. Let's be honest, this is the fucking losers bracket. The two groups we got going head to head for number 10 is the Jews versus the Indians. It's a contentious battle. It's a very tough battle. We got to start for the pros of each group. Pros, Indians, funny accent. All right, probably the funniest of all of them. I don't think there's any accent that's funnier than an Indian accent. I'm trying to think. And I think like every accent that might be funnier than an Indian accent is like Indian adjacent. Chinese is pretty funny, but I think Indian might be the funniest. I think Indians might have the funniest accent. And once again, we go back to it's not just like the words they use and stuff like that and like the actual like sound of their voice. It's like the cadence and just like when an Indian person gets mad, it's one of the funniest fucking things on earth. It's just fully fucking bloody fuck you and I motherfuck your bitch. Just like that. That might be like the peak of what a person can do in terms of like being funny. And they just talk so fast, but the downside of the Indian accent is like when you hear it in public, like when you're at Walmart or whatever, or God forbid you're on a bus or like a subway or just really any cramped space like that. I mean, you're dealing with multiple assaults on your senses. You know what I mean? I'm talking smell. I'm talking your ears. Yeah, you're dealing with a two front war there. It's a difficult one to deal with, and if you're a woman, that's game over. You just gotta. If you're a woman and you're on a crowded bus with an Indian, it's game time, man. You either gotta fucking pull the emergency brake and hit a Jason Statham roll out of that thing, or you just have to accept your fate. So, yeah, funny accent, but it can be an assault on the ears, and they also do that funny head bubble thing. And I do, I have a tumultuous relationship with the Indian boys because obviously the ones that run the gas stations, there's not if we were breaking it out down into like categories like that, those boys would be number one, far and away. Indians that run gas stations are undoubtedly the best. They're like chill, but at the same time, they're not like negligent necessarily of their jobs, but they are chill. You know what I mean? They'll fucking scan your Zins or your cigarettes or candy bars or whatever you're buying. They'll scan that shit quick. They'll get you exact change. Sometimes they'll give you a little bit more than exact change because they don't want to fucking count out pennies. You know, but they do have an air of like laxness around them. You know what I mean? They're chill. They're having a full conversation with some of the boys back in Mumbai on an earpiece or whatever. So, and obviously, the ultimate upside is when you're like 17 years old and you're like, I want to buy like shitty gas station weed. You're like, let's find Brigitte, dude. Where is Brigitte at? Let's go buy some shitty gas station weed from him. So I think that's one of the major major things they have going for them is the fact that they're the best when it comes to gas stations. They really have it just perfectly dialed in. I don't think there's a single ethnicity globally that has like a business like that as dialed in as the Indians do when it comes to gas stations. There's it's really not up for debate. They're the best at gas stations. When I see Prajeet behind the counter, I'm like, yeah, dude, I might have to hear a fuck ton of like Hindi or what's the other one? It starts with a P. I forget what it is, but I might have to hear a fuck ton of that. But I'm getting in and out with exact change as quickly as possible, dude. Like a white dude at a gas station, he's gonna be like, "So, how's your day, man? Oh, it's going good. Yeah, my fucking dog just died." And it's like, dude, you work at a fucking gas station. I already know your life is sad. Okay, I don't. I don't need to hear about the additional sadness that's going on in your life. I know the Indians, they're all business when it comes to the G stations. And I think that's probably their biggest upside, you know. I think overall, not just in terms of them being in America, but I think overall that is their biggest upside. No one holds a gas station down like an Indian. Maybe like an old like Cajun dude in the South might give them a run for their money, but I think ultimately tie goes to the runner. The Indians are the best when it comes to gas stations, and I don't think that's up for debate in any way, shape, or form. I really don't think it is at all. So that's like a major bonus that the Indians have going for them. Negatives, I mean, there's just so fucking many of them, dude. Like negatives are there is a billion more Indians than there is Americans, dude. There is so many fucking Indians, and from that, you know, let's just say 10% of white people are like super shitty or whatever, right? But white people are only like I don't even know if there's a billion white people out there. There might be like, you know, 700 million or something like that. Maybe a little bit more. It might be an even bill. So, but the Indians, they've got 1.5 times that. So, let's just say it's like 5%. If 5% of people in any given group are shitty, the Indians obviously are going to be grossly overrepresented because they've just got so many of them, you know? And I do think that's a knock against them. You know, it's Joseph Stalin said quantity has a quality in into itself or whatever. I don't know if that's true, man. Because you look at India, they're not doing too great. So I think Joseph Stalin might have been a little bit wrong about that one. Maybe from like the perspective of a communist dictator, that might be true, but just from the perspective of like a person, like really any other person, that's not true. So that is a major knock against them. And just their country is just, it's like how, it doesn't even make sense, dude, because India is a third world country. People will try to deny that by like cutting out like a picture of like the one skyscraper in Dubai that's not covered by like flies and trash and stuff. And they'll be like, could a third world country do this? And it's like, yeah. Even Zimbabwe has a few fucking nice places in it. So, yes, a third world country could do that. It, but they're also a third world country where there's 1.5 billion of them, you know? And that's just, I don't understand how that's even possible. Because they don't have health infrastructure, like at all. In any, there's no like public health, there's no like private, there's nothing like that. There's probably like one doctor for every 1 million people in India or something like that, dude. And just like the general environment is an environment of sickness, dude. Um, and so yeah, I don't know. I just don't get how they got 1.5 billion of them. And I guess you got to give them credit for that. Somehow, in a country filled with sewage and like literally the air gives people infections and stuff like that, dude. Somehow, in a country full of that, where their main river is ecologically dead, they've managed to accumulate 1.5 billion people. So it's a plus and a minus. I'd say overall, though, it's a net negative. Um, Other negatives, the smell. I, look, you just got to throw your hands up sometimes and say it is what it is. I just don't get it, dude. I'm not the most smell-oriented person on earth, in terms of taking care of myself. Like, I brush my teeth, I shower every day. I, I brush my teeth twice a day. Um, I wear deodorant, but it's like I'm not gonna be wearing cologne and all that bullshit. I'm just not gonna do it. I'd rather smell like nothing than something. It's just it is what I am. But sometimes in there, the routine gets a little bit messed up, and you don't put on the deodorant after you get out of the shower, and you go a full day, and you're like, oh fuck, I didn't put on deodorant for the last 24 hours, and you smell your armpits, and you go, yeah, that's bo. Not great, especially for the people around me, but it is what it is. But the Indians, dude, I, I just don't. Maybe it's the food that they make in their houses. It's something like that because it's an overwhelming smell. If that's how ultimately I had to describe, because sometimes it's not necessarily bad, but like it's not necessarily like a stinky smell, although often it is, but it's just so powerful, where it's like even if you were wearing like the best cologne, I don't know anything about cologne, but even if you're wearing the best cologne, if you're wearing too much of it, it's gonna smell bad. And that's just the smell that the Indians have. I don't think it's a consistent smell amongst all of them, although probably for a large majority it's the same smell, but it is just massively overwhelming. It's just, once again, it's an assault. It's fully like, if you're a woman on a train with a bunch of Indians, you got to worry about being assaulted. But if you're a dude, you also got to worry about being assaulted. They assault you without even touching you, man. Like that's how overwhelming the smell is. It's like this has to be some sort of physical thing in the fourth dimension or whatever that I can't see because I can feel it. you know, Phil Collins or whatever. I can feel it in the air tonight, dude. Um, so that is a major knock that they have against them. Just in just general uncleanliness, I'd say, and maybe not the Indians in America, but definitely the Indians in India. They definitely, it's definitely a major point against them. And there's 1.5 billion of them living just in India alone. So that's probably like the majority of them are not a cleanly group. And so look, we got to knock and like it's not even just like a poor thing. It's like they're choosing it's like they're choosing to not be clean sometimes. Because you look at Zimbabwe or whatever. Zimbabwe doesn't have rivers of shit in plastic. They don't have that, dude, in Zimbabwe. The people of Zimbabwe don't have a festival where they bathe in cow shit. The people of Zimbabwe, they don't do that stuff. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just something about Hinduism or whatever. And it probably is. It probably is something to do with Hinduism because believing that you're born disadvantaged and believing that that is like a God-given thing, I do feel like would lead to a certain rejection of cleanliness because it's like, well, if I was supposed to have the money to be able to buy soap and throw away my garbage in a garbage can, I would have had it, right? Or it might be a thing of like self-deprecation or whatever, where they're just like in their head, they're like, well, I'm just so lowly that I don't even deserve it or whatever. It might be something like that, but whatever it is, fucking figure it out, dude, because that's what everyone thinks when they think of you. Upsides, though, like I said, the gas stations, no one runs it better than them. The food, especially North Indian food, and then biryani. I don't know if biryani's Indian. It might be like Pakistani or something like that, but let's be fucking honest here. Same thing. Same, same group of people. Quite literally, at one point they were. So same thing. Um, but the food is really good. Butter chicken, naan. Um, I mean, those are the two main ones. I don't like tiki masala that much. I think it's a little bit too sweet. But biryani is very good. Um, Thai or what? Not Thai. Fuck, I'm retarded. Chai. That shit is good as fuck. It's the only type of tea that I enjoy besides Arizona, of course. Um, basic no, I just like sugar. I don't even know if I like the tea aspect of it. I think I just really like sugar, but the spices in chai tea are good as shit. And so, yeah, those are the positives and negatives of the Indians. And just the amount is going to play into this. You know, just the pure amount of them that they have, their ability to cause detriment to the world around them. That is a key factor. And so now we got to go to our other bottom contender, which is the Jays. The Jays are a group of people who seem almost born to have, or um, I do feel like they were created in order to be bullied. I do feel like that is the truth about the Jays. You know, they pop out. I feel like 90% of the time when they pop out, they already have a pair of like the ugliest fucking like wire glasses you've ever seen in their life just slapped on their face. I did. Look, is what it is. And they're just born to be bullied. I don't know what it is about them. And history agrees with me. You know, I'm not the one who came up with this. Throughout history, no one's been bullied as much as the Jays, allegedly. I don't know. I don't. I don't know if that's true or not, but no one's got their head dunked in the toilet. No one's been stuffed in as many lockers as the Jays have. And that's and just it's the way they talk. it's it's the style choices that they choose. Like once again, back to like the whole thing of like the caste system in India maybe like kind of forcing people into this thing where they're like, well, I'm a piece of shit anyway, so I'll just surround myself with shit. I feel like the Jews come out being like, well, I'm gonna be bullied anyway, so I might as well just force myself to do it. You know, where they have like that weird fucking hair thing, the nose, just the general features that they have are like just born to be bullied. I don't know. I don't know what it is about them, but I mean, if you consider that to be the truth, right? If you think that Jews are born to be bullied, then the whole Palestine thing does make a whole lot of sense. Because when kids are bullied in America, what do? They go and they shoot up the school, right? And then they kill a bunch of people who might not have even been the ones who were bullying them in the first place. They're just so full of rage and they're like, I have to let the world know how powerful I am or whatever. I think that's kind of what the Jays are doing uh, in Palestine, where it's like, you'll see how strong I am one day. And you'll stop bullying me. You'll learn to be nice to me. You know, I feel like that's what they're doing. Like they have a fucking like a Billy Madison, Steve Buscemi list of like all the people who are mean to them, or just everyone in general, and they're just crossing them off one by one, being like, I'm gonna show you. Like I think that's the thing that they have going on. Just a general air of like prey. I guess is the best way to put it. This is all jokes, but I do think they have like a general air of like a prey animal, like a rabbit or whatever. Like when you look at a rabbit running through your yard or whatever, you're like, I understand. I understand why this is like the number one thing that animals choose to munch on. You know, it's maybe not necessarily the easiest to get. Like it's probably easier to kill a mouse than a rabbit. But a rabbit just you look at that thing and you go, dude, you were born to be eaten. You were born to be snatched up by a fox and fucking ripped into shreds. Um and that's what Jews are. Um another downside, um and I guess this goes back to the whole prey animal thing, is just a general air of facetiousness about them. Like, all right, all right, okay, whatever. But you guys know what I mean. Like all the businesses that they dominate is like the film industry and like banking, and those are the two dirtiest like industries, right? Like finance and like movies are probably the two dirtiest industries in my personal opinion, because at least with things like drug dealing and like mafia and like illegal business, right? Like racketeering type shit, you know what you're getting into. It's like if you're smuggling a kilo of coke across the border, you know what time it is. You know I fuck around, you're gonna get killed. You know what I mean? I say the wrong thing to the wrong person, I'm getting my fucking tongue pulled out through my neck. Right? I'm getting a Puerto Rican bow tie or whatever the fuck it's called. Like that's what you're signing up for. But like finance and like the movie industry, these are like legal businesses. So you kind of go into it assuming, and they're like well respected, right? Because they make so much money. But so they're like these well respected businesses, but they're just as like dirty, backstabby. People are getting killed over this shit. They're just as bad as these, cartels and shit like that. So yeah, right. And I guess that's like the difference between the Latinos and the Jews. The Latinos are just like, this is all about making as much money as fucking humanly possible, and we're just going to be upfront that we're like a violent, vindictive group of people, and we're just going to make the Tijuana cartel or whatever. Whereas the Jays, they play it a little bit closer to the chest. Um, Other potential downsides, just Israel. I don't know, just because even if you're a Jew and you're like, I fucking hate Israel, it there's still like a certain connection there that people are going to make every single time they hear you're Jewish. They're just going to instantly associate you with Israel and be like, you're the same thing, right? And the reason for that is because Israel was founded as a Jewish ethno state. So, of course, people are going to um, connect the Jewish ethnicity with the Jewish ethno state. And so, yeah, that's another downside. Upsides, the women have the largest, I mean, just on average, the largest, and not just largest, we're talking just the largest, most shapely, just amazing tits you've ever seen in your entire life. They're perfect. Every single pair of Jewish tits, and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. Trust me, there's a fucking Reddit that is dedicated to it that I have visited on more than one occasion. Okay, so I know if you're a man and you like a little bit of perk, you got that. If you like a little bit more of like that natural, stretch mark, a little bit of not sag, I guess sag, but looseness. I don't know. I don't know a way to describe it that's flattering. But look, I fucking like that too. Whatever it is, you can find that in a pair of Jewish tits, and I don't know if there's another race that has a claim to that type of diversity and quality when it comes to tits as the Jews do. I think in terms of tit, they're number one. In like far and away they're number one. Yeah, there might be a few like Scandinavians you might be able but I think ultimately they're number one. Latinas might give them a little bit of a run for their money, but I just think in terms of tits, you're not going to find a better on average than Jewish tits. And maybe that's the reason they've been able to survive so long. Like I was talking about the facetious nature of it. Women are the ultimate facetious natured people on this planet. And so I think the big tits have played a major role in Jewish survival, right? Because it's like if you're killing, if you're doing a genocide and like you're just dealing with like flat chest after like frog butt after mangled vagina, then you're not going to kill as many of those people. You're not going to kill as many of those people. But if you're consistently running into a pair in, butts have gone in and out of style throughout history. Tits have not, you know. Tits are always there. They're omnipresent, right? You look at like the Venus figurines of like Paleolithic humans, tits have always been in style. And I think that's one of the reasons, in spite of all the hardship, the Jews have been able to survive as long as they have. Just because it's like I can't, dude. Like it goes against my very nature to kill a woman with big, giant, perky, milky tits. It like that's the basis of survival for humanity. Women and their ability to take care of children is the reason that we're all here today. You know, I guess that's kind of true about like men and the ability to like jizz and like hunt, but I don't know, to a lesser extent. I personally believe. I feel like women should get a little bit more credit in that category than men should. And Jewish women just, I mean, there's just no question about it. Number one, tits. Like ass, there is a question about it. It's like, it's between, in my personal opinion, black and Latina, you know. And I feel like that's a little bit of a battle that's been going back and forth throughout the whole years, or throughout the years. You know what I mean? You got J Lo, and then bam, 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 Nicki Minaj comes out, and then you got, it's just a battle between ass, uh, or for ass between the Latinas and the black ladies. But I feel like Jewish chicks, if you know your tit game, then you know that they are number one. So that's a very big pro that they have going for them. Another pro, they get like 1,000 days off a year. you know, it's their religion is probably the most fun one to be involved with, because you're just constantly like finding loopholes and like tricking God, and you get 1,000 days off. It, they do have a good one in that sense. Um, but just negatives. This is a tough. This is going to be tough to decide who to put at number 10 between the Indians and the Jews. I think overall we're going to go Indians number 10, and like I said, the just the pure quantity does play into it, right? Like the Jays, try as they might, aren't going to have that great of an effect on the world, you know. But the Indians, there's just 1.5 billion of them. There is what 200 countries on Earth or something like that. Like the Indians could give 1 million people to every country on Earth, right? What would be the math on that? That would be 1 million people to 200 million people. Yeah, and they'd still have like 1.3 billion left over. So, you know, and they're like rabbits. they get somewhere and it's game over. You can't get them out of there once they're in there. And so for that reason, it's like it's like when you get bug beds, you just got to throw away the whole mattress and start again. Okay. Okay. God, this does sound like some serious World War II propaganda, if you know what I mean. All right, so who do we have left? We have black, African, Arab, white, Latino, Aboriginal, Asian, and then American Indian. This is tough. We'll put the Arabs right now at number 8. And one of the big reasons why is just they're very, very, in a lot of ways, close to Indians. Accent, very, very fucking similar. The food, there is, like, I do think it does have a better smell about it, right? And I think part of the reason for that is because Arabs can eat beef, and I think beef is probably the best smelling meat when it's cooking, and it doesn't take as many spices. You know what I mean? Like mutton or lamb or whatever, you got to spice the shit out of that thing, right? And Indians eat a lot of that. And so obviously they're just going to have a general spice smell about them. But the Arabs definitely are into the spices as well, you know. Um, and they don't have a lot of the things going for them like the Indians do. But what they do have going for them is they do keep their bitches in check, right? There's many things you could say about the Arab people, but one thing you can't say is that they have loud women. All right, you cannot. You could say that about the Jews. You could say that about the Indians. You could say that about any other race of people. The whites. You could say it about all of them. The Arabs do not have loud women. Okay. And the women that they do have, you know, I understand why they're putting them in, KKK outfits and stuff like that, wrapping them up in bed sheets, because they are, a lot of them are fine as shit. I don't know. I'm just really into women in general, so that's probably going to be a positive that I give to every single group. But negatives is obviously, um, inbreeding. I think all the most inbred countries on Earth, they got the Arabs in them. Other negatives, a lot of Arabs, especially in the United States, are car dealers, you know? And that to me, that goes right along with finance in like Hollywood and stuff in terms of being a facetious business. You know, it's because just this is just a person that is just directly lying to your face to try to get you to spend money. You know, like a dude working at Walmart, he's not going to try to sell you anything, you know. But like a car dealer, that's how he makes probably at least 50% of his money is by commission and stuff like that. And I think that's just a very shady business, especially used car salesmen. I don't think any group in America dominates used car sales like the Arabs do. And that's just a very dirty business altogether to me. Uh, Upsides, once again, major food upside here. Just like the Indians, the Jews, the major knock against them is they do not have any fucking food. Arabs, they've got, I mean, hummus, falafel. I guess this is mostly Mediterranean, right? Like, I don't know what fucking people in Afghanistan eat, but like Mediterranean Arab food, oh my god, it's so fucking good. Kebabs, all that fucking shit. And I guess we got to include the Turks with the Arabs. Um, and the Turks got some of the best food out there, some of the hottest women out there. I'm not going to include the Iranians in there. I don't know if they want. I don't know. That's a tough thing. The Persians. I won't include the Persians with the Arabs. And so that is going to be kind of a knock against the Arabs because the Persians are fucking awesome. They're all, the men and the women are all hot as shit. Right? They're probably one of the most attractive group of people. They're pretty upfront about what they believe. Like Iran literally means home of the Aryans. Even after World War II, they were like, "Hell yeah, we're Aryan, let's go." Um, and so that is going to be kind of a knock against the Arabs is that I'm not including Persians in there, although they're pretty similar. Um, and then of course other negatives. I guess this is maybe a little bit more of an Islam thing, but definitely the Arabs are big into this, and that's slavery. um, no, just like the Arab world, or I guess the Arabized world, right? You know, like North Africa and stuff like that. That is like the last like bastion of like true slavery. Like yeah, every country on earth has slavery somewhere in the mix, but like they're pretty upfront about it. Like Mauritania, which is I guess it's kind of like an in between of like Arab and African, but like that they have open slave markets there, and I think they have them in Libya too. And I'm including Libya in the Arabs. So yeah, slavery that's going to be a major knock against them. Uh, but I mean, at least that means they're smart businessmen. You know what I mean? Like that's the ultimate. Slavery is the ultimate business move. You know, like I feel like that's what every company in America is trying to do right now. It's like how can we bring back slavery without like fully calling it slavery? I feel like that's what every company in America is trying to do, right? Like Google, Amazon, all those guys are like, how can we turn all these people into slaves without actually calling them slaves? Um, so it's a negative and a positive. Um, and then of course negatives are you got what's that called? Ramadan. That's a major negative. No alcohol, stuff like that. A lot of genocide in their history. Although any group that's really been dominant, you know, throughout history, they've also got a lot of genocide in there. Um, but yeah, I think it's kind of a similar uh, strain to the Jays, where it has this certain sense of like I don't know, it has this je ne sais quoi about it that's like negative. That's like kind of fake and manufactured. I don't know. You know, like I'm thinking of the Gulf states right now, like Dubai, Abu Dhabi. I've gone on rants about those, Riyadh, all those places. It it has the same feeling to me as like Israel or something like that. Like it's just like it doesn't quite add up to me. But good businessmen, um, but they're not like good businessmen on the level of the Jays. You know, like the Jays are like 0.2% of the popular, like probably not even that much of the population of the world, and they're like dominating every single business. And yeah, maybe the way they got there wasn't the best. You know, might have been a lot of blackmailing and insider shit, but they still fucking got there. You have to give them the fucking credit for getting there in the first place. And so Yeah, I don't know. Arabs are just at number 8. They're not really number 9 and 10 were the only ones that I had a whole lot of negative things to say about, but yeah, Islam as a religion, not a great religion. Probably not the worst either. There's just so much of it that it's kind of hard to exactly say, but I already did the religion ranking, and I think that was at the bottom, if not the bottom. Um, but yeah, they are. They're fine. I don't know. There's not a, and the other thing about the Arabs is there's just not a whole lot of jokes you can make about them anymore, right? Like after 9/11, every single racist uncle in America made the same 20,000 jokes about Arabs, and they did it a million times. So there's just not a whole lot of jokes I can make there. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. Love blowing themselves up. I guess that's a good thing about them, right? Is that they're they do a decent job at thinning themselves out. They do a decent job at attacking people that they probably should not be attacking and then getting absolutely fucking destroyed afterwards. They do a decent job of that, if they're even doing it. I don't know. I got some questions about who's really behind some of these things. But they're going at number 8. Solid group of bros. These are all solid bros. And obviously all the chicks are hot. Next up, what do we have left? We have black, African, white, Latino, Aboriginal, Asian, and American Indian. This is tough for me. This is very tough for me to do. I hate to do this to the boys. I really do hate to do this to the boys, but we're going to put Aboriginal at number 7. Once again, this is a numbers game. Like India has way too many. Aboriginals, they don't have enough. There's only like, I don't even think there's a million of them in the world. And probably not even half of those guys are like full, abos. But they do rule hard as fuck. I can't knock them that much because there's this one like racist Australian guy that I see all the time on TikTok. But he's always like criticizing the Aboriginals who live in Australia, and he's always like, they live on government benefits and they just take and they all they do is drink all day and huff gas, and it's like, dude, they that kind of sounds like it fucking rules hard as fuck. Just like living on like a scrap of land somewhere that not even the British wanted to conquer, and you're just sitting on that scrap of land, huffing gas and drinking whiskey all day, and some dude is just raging out of his mind. Right? About how you're getting like shit for free. That does rule hard as fuck. And then their religion is sick as hell. And their history is amazing. I love nothing more than Aboriginal history. It's like, dude, we just pulled up to this place and like chilled for a few thousand years. Or for not a few thousand, like 60,000 years. They just chilled and like kind of did the same thing throughout that whole time. They didn't have, there were I don't know if there were any permanent structures in Australia before, the Indonesians and the Dutch and the British started to arrive there. I don't know if there were any there, right? And then you got New Zealand, which is right next door, and the Maori are like this, advanced like warrior people. And then right next to that, dude, you got the fucking Aboriginals just chilling there, having a good old time. And there's some of the most unique looking people on earth. They have very dark skin, but it's not like, I don't know. They're very unique looking people. They all have like this strong brow ridge, this big old like fucking like an Irish nose mixed with like a black nose that's just like this huge old honker on their face. And they just always seem like they're having so much fun. I don't know. It's just tough for me to put them there, but ultimately, I do feel like I do have things that I can say about other groups. And that's ultimately what this comes down to. It's what group could I make the most racist jokes about? And the Aboriginals, I just don't have that many racist jokes that I can make about them because there's so few of them. They haven't infected the world enough with just being there in order to make stereotypes about them. Like whites and blacks probably are the groups of people that have like the two most stereotypes about them, and they're probably the most widespread groups of people on the face of the planet. And so, of course, there's going to be all these stereotypes and like jokes about them. But like the Aboriginals, I don't know. There's just not that many racist jokes I can make about them. They all have, they all have a crazy build, though, right? Because I think it's just like the way their anatomy developed, uh, over the thousands of years that they lived in Australia. They're not meant to be fat. I don't think that before the British showed up, there was a single fat Aboriginal person. And so they all have this crazy, like, Mr. Bobinski type build of just like a big old round belly and then like stick legs and arms. Uh, yeah. But they're just a fun, I don't know, they're just fun. They're just like the bros. I don't know what other, racist jokes I can make about them. It's just they spent 60,000 years and all they could come up with was the boomerang. Man, that's a group of people that I want to hang out with. It's like the craziest invention that you came up with, the most time that you took to invent, a piece of technology was a boomerang. That sounds like a fucking, like if you just rolled up to like an island somewhere and there was just a bunch of dudes living there that have lived there for 100,000 years or whatever, and it was like, show me your greatest invention. And he just whipped out like a frisbee. I'd be like, these dudes, or like a bong or something like that, dude. I'd be like, let's fucking go, boys. you know? And that's how I feel about the ABBA. It's like, let's fucking go, boys. And it's also, I haven't encountered any ever in my entire life. But they seem like a chill group, And obviously, you look at their history, they're like the most chill. No one did less than them. No one was just hanging out like those guys were hanging out. I remember when I did my first ever episode about Aboriginal Australian spirituality, it was like, dude, they spend like 4 hours a day. Like everyone. It's not just like the priests and the shamans and shit. It's like everyone spends 4 hours a day doing religious shit. It's like I don't know. I don't have anything negative to say about them, but not a whole ton of positives either. Um so who do we have left? Black, African, white, Latino, Asian, and then American Indian. Whew, this is a tough one. I think up next, I didn't put him at number 10 because I guess it doesn't really matter anymore, right? The Democratic Party has completely abandoned black people. They're not even pretending to care about black people anymore. From like 2016 to like 2021, that was all you heard the Democratic Party talk about was like black people, black people, black people. And then now it's like illegal immigrants and transgender people. They don't, you can say the N word now and get away with it because the Democratic Party kind of just stopped caring about black people. The mainstream Democratic Party, at least. They've just kind of completely abandoned them. Like the greatest thing they did for them in the most recent election was like, yeah, we're going to have a half black woman run to be president and everyone hates her. We're going to have the most annoying lady run for president and represent you. So, yeah, we'll put black at number 6. And once again, I'm just talking about like black people everywhere outside of Africa. I just feel like they're so different than black people within Africa. Some of the negatives, the, the boys cannot stop taking hubcaps. All right. No matter what country on earth black people go to, the hubcaps are all instantly gone from that particular region that they arrived in. And to be fair, I don't think there's a whole lot of hubcaps to steal in South Sudan, but still, they have an insatiable thirst for hubcaps and children's bikes that just cannot be quelled, dude. And that's where they have a leg up on the whites, right? Because blacks love stealing bikes out of people's front yards. Or children's bikes out of people's front yards. But you know what white people steal out of people's front yards? The children themselves. So they do got a leg up on the whites in that particular department. But, and I've said this before, and I'll say this again, there is no greater crime to me than being annoying. And that's where the Indians, That's why they were number 10. That's why the Jews were number 9. And that's why the blacks are number 6, right? Because you really get a roll of the dice when it comes to them. The good ones. No, this one's a good one. That's why I let him live in my house. No, he's not out in the field. God damn, dude. Um, but that is the major knock against them. You know, and I'm a person that talks very loud, so I am sympathetic to that. But it does feel at a certain point like it's a little bit intentional. Loud music. They talk very loud. I don't know, dude. Maybe we need to like check out all black people's ears or something like that because they're very loud. And they also seem to not be able to hear the smoke alarm chirping in the corner. I think they might just all have like bad ears or something like that. I don't know. It's an evolutionary thing or whatever. I want to go full Hotep for a second and be like, black people can't hear the chirping of the fire alarm because it reminds them of the master yelling at them. Slave, slave, slave. That's what I hear every time the alarm chirps. All right, motherfucker. So that's why I can't hear it. All right, that was me going going Hotep there for a second. But that is the major knock they have against them. In terms of most other things, obviously everyone in the world is trying to be like black Americans. Really just Americans as a whole, but like specifically, especially when it comes to like fashion, they're trying to be like black Americans, and that's you have to give them a little bit of credit there, but then you consider the blacks in England and stuff like that, and that's just I can't think of I don't know, a more annoying person than that. Or I can, but in terms of where we're at in the ranking, we already eliminated the two most annoying. But just like a British black person, I don't know, just something about that, like really, it shivers my timbers. It makes me feel a little bit queasy when I think about the fact that there's like black people in Britain that want to be like American blacks. And it's just, what are you doing there? And that to me is like peak annoying shit. It's like stop trying to copy us. Or I guess stop trying to copy them. But they're Americans, so stop trying to copy us. Um but yeah, major points against them, annoying. Major points for them, hot women. I don't know. I like black ladies. Like I said, I think I'm just really attracted to, like, when people ask me, like, what's your type? It's like, I don't, like, hot women. I don't know. If a chick's blonde, it doesn't really matter to me unless she's also hot. And it's a very big range. I'd say about 80 to 90% fall into that range of women above the age of 18 who are clearly fully developed fall into that range of like women that I'm attracted to. And like the black Americans to me are like really the only ones that are like pulling their weight in this group. They're the only ones that are keeping it this high. Um just because British black and just British people in general are very, very annoying. Um, and so of course, add another layer on top of that, dude. Negative times a negative equals a positive. I don't fucking know. But they're going at number 6. Um, who do we have left? We have African, white, Latino, Asian, and American Indian. I'll put American Indian at number 5. Once again, kind of the same thing as the Aboriginals, although I have spent a lot more time around American Indians, and I myself am, I guess, technically part of that group. But yeah, just the same thing as the Aboriginals, where it's like, but I think with a lot more cultural contributions. You know what I mean? Just like the term chief, I feel like that's a major, and tobacco, like nicotine, they the Indians get credit for that one. You have to give them full credit for that one. Corn, just a lot more cultural contributions, but kind of with the limited scope that the Aboriginals also have. It's kind of what the two groups have in common. It's like I don't have a whole lot to say. And kind of a similar sentiment to the Aboriginals, where they just chilling, just however long it was, 20,000 years, 40,000 years, just not doing a whole lot. Like, I'm talking about, like, North American, Indian tribes just chilling mostly, devoting a ton of time to religion and spirituality and stuff like that, inventing just not that much shit. Just just chilling, like I said, making the Frisbee, but a little bit more active than the Aboriginals, and so they get the nod there. They do get the nod, uh, in terms of a general activity and stuff like that. And again, a very funny group of people when you look at like the technological history of North American Indians, because eh, dude, I've said this before, but this is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my entire life. So a lot of people are like, especially racist people, will be like, oh well, Indians are beneath us because when Christopher Columbus arrived or whatever, they were in the Stone Age, which kind of not true, right? But kind of regardless, uh, that is kind of true for the American or the Indians of North America. But the funny thing about it is, at one point they did have like the ability to do metallurgy, right? Which is like the word the fancy word for metalworking and stuff like that. And so they knew how to do it and they just didn't do it. And same with the wheel. They knew how to make wheels. They were just like, fuck it, I'm not using that thing. Wheels are gay, dude. you know? It's like one of those stories you hear about like Mark Zuckerberg. And it's like, what would have happened if Mark Zuckerberg gave up? We would have never had Facebook. That's kind of the story of like technological advancement when it comes to like the North American Indians, where it's like, no, they did stop. Someone did bully that guy into using stone warheads instead of uh metal warheads. Some guy did get bullied out of using wheels. Like, dude, a wheel kind of looks like a dick spinning in a circle to me, dude. It's kind of gay. um and obviously I'm an American, so I see a lot more of the cultural contributions, spend a lot of time around them as well. So I do see a lot more of the cultural contributions of Native Americans. So maybe I was a little bit unfair to the Aboriginals, but I don't know. I I've looked into a lot of Aboriginal stuff, and they just don't seem to have, and even like in modern times, there's still an influence on just culture as a whole that I see coming from the Native Americans that I can't particularly um, transfer over to the Aboriginals like that. So once again, another group that I just don't have a ton to say about. Do spend a lot of time around them. Um, Not loud. I don't. The drums and the burning of the sage doesn't happen frequently enough. For me, for my autistic brain to go crazy and be like, "Hey, someone's making noise. Someone's burning." you know. Doesn't happen enough for me to care or notice. Um, so yeah, once again, just a cool aesthetic, but not necessarily something that I have to say a whole lot about. And then what are we at? Number 4, or are we at number 5? Whatever number we're at now, the whites are going there. The whites are going at number uh 5. Or I don't know if I have 10. If I have 10 groups on the, or no, I think I do. Okay, yeah. Or no, the whites are going to number 4. We made it all the way up there. The crime of annoyance. For me, I don't know if there's any party that is more guilty of being annoying than the whites, right? Like the whites, black people, yeah, they kind of talk loud and they play loud music and stuff like that. But the whites will like invade you with annoyance. Like that's a thing that white people will do. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm invading people's ears with being annoying. But it's just the whites will shove the fact that they're annoying down your throat. And they have a sense of superiority about their annoying tendencies as well. Um, and just like politics is just so annoying. And for me, some of the most annoying, or at least the loudest voice within that group, is the whites. They're the most annoying subject, the most annoying people are whites. And so it's like, I can't rank them any higher. I already knocked down some other groups for being for their crime of annoyance, and so I have to put the whites at number 4 because it's they're definitely not the most annoying, but they're definitely top 4. I'd say they're top 4 annoying, but where you got to give a little bit of credit is, for the most part, they ain't taking hubcaps. You know what I mean? They ain't. They ain't stealing the children's bikes. They ain't doing stuff like that. But there is a certain sense of entitlement with the whites, right? Like a homeless black person, he might like jump up on your car and like spray the window and like wash it off or something like that. And that is annoying, but at least the motherfucker's working for, your change cup or whatever. At least he's trying to get in some get in some work to get that thing. But like a homeless white person will just like sit there and beg and then fucking get mad at you when you don't give them money for not doing anything. The whites, once again, very familiar with this. There is a strong sense of entitlement that the whites have, and that just adds even more to the annoyance, the general annoying air that white people have about them. It's it's a more, to me, it's the same. It's a higher level of annoyance maybe than the blacks, but it's not. It's not the same kind. It's like I said, it's an entitled annoyance. It's an I'm better than you annoyance, which I really don't like at all. And so for that reason, they're going at number 4. The downsides, we get the most obvious one here. And that's the simple fact that whites cannot stop doing weird sex shit with animals and children. I don't I don't get it. I'm an incredibly horny person. I'm probably one of the horniest people I know. And just I've never taken a trip down that particular lane. I'm a very pale person. Uh, and from my voice, obviously, a white, but I've never taken a trip down that lane. But it seems like almost every time someone does take a trip down that lane, it's old fucking, it's old whitey two shoes skipping down that lane, being like, "I'm gonna go get fucked to death by a horse," you know. Or like they're skipping down the lane and then they see a child and then they're like, I'm gonna take 40,000 pictures of this kid and have 98 terabytes of it on my computer. It's just, and people, I don't know, people will be like, oh, well, if you look at the data, I'm not looking at the data, dude. This is purely stereotypes, okay? And I'm going off the stereotype that white people love molesting children. I don't know. They cannot, and I'm trying to think if I've said this one, but pedophilia is a sign of decadence, in my personal opinion, because to be having sex when you don't necessarily need to have it, right? That to me is a sign that you live in a decadent society, right? So I think pedophilia is decadence, and I think that's why white people are the main perpetrators of it, at least stereotypically. I don't know. I know the fucking red pillars are gonna come out or whatever and be like, fucking look at this infographic I saw on Instagram Reels, you fucking idiot, dude. How do you not understand this? All right, and then at number 3, we're gonna go African. And I guess in Africans, I do kind of have to include the Afrikaners, the Boers, the South Africans. I do have to include them in there because once again, and I just really like Africa. Maybe that's the reason I separated it up a little bit. But I do just really fucking like Africa, like all of them. I don't like North Africa. I like Sub-Saharan and stuff like that. The history of it, all that. But once again, I already discussed the major positive they have going for them. Other major thing that the Africans have going for them is like religion. I'm not religious myself, but like I do respect a society that is very religious. Like legitimately, I do. Uh, and this is a very religious group of people. Sometimes to a fault, dude. Sometimes, sometimes in Africa, they're like, "I'm gonna do this little hoodoo voodoo dance over you, and then you're gonna be immune to bullets," right? But they're very religious, and for the most part, they're Christians. So, and I think what was that, number 2 on the religion ranking? So yeah, that's why these guys are higher than the Arabs. Um, very funny. Just everything they do, dude. It's just like there's a lot of sadness there, but I think out of that sadness comes some of the funniest shit, right? Some of the a dude driving a car made out of like the steel, like the corrugated steel they use to make like shantytown roofs. Like I could just picture that in my head. Like a man in Uganda invented a car made entirely out of shantytown roofs, and he drives it around. Like I could picture something like that happening, over in fucking Zambia or something like that. Just such a funny group of people, and once again, we're talking about like south of the Sahara here. We're talking not about like desert blacks and stuff like that. Um, and so I think a big part of that is why I have such a positive view in terms of stereotypes is like Nigerians and like really most of those other groups of people when they come to America, they're like the best. They're some of like the best fucking people on the planet. Seriously, right? The ones from North Africa, I don't like Somalians, dude. I don't. If I included them on this list, they'd be number 147. I would figure out how to put them in the farthest spot from number one. But like the dudes from like Nigeria, Zimbabwe, dude, Kenyans, Ugandans. I don't like. I get being racist or whatever, but like, I don't know. Every person I've met who's from Africa or who's like a what would that be, a second generation immigrant? I don't know exactly how that works, but like whose parents are from Africa. I don't know. There's like the chillest on earth. Major downsides. Um, Corruption. That's I'd say that's a pretty big downside of Africans. Um, they just love it, dude. They just cannot stop being corrupt. They love corruption so much. But that does make them very good businessmen when they come over here and stuff like that. So, once again, I kind of already went over everything I love so much about them. A formal group of people, a religious group of people, funny, but like also in all seriousness, outside of the stereotypes and stuff like that, every single one of them I've met has been pretty chill for the most part. I don't know. And once again, we're excluding Somalia from this list. Fucking obviously, dude. I feel like that goes without saying. I feel like not even Somalians like Somalians. All right. Number two is going to be Asian, and number one is going to be Latino. It's I I think anyone listening to this for any length of time, or who has listened to this for any length of time, knows the Latinos are going number one, dude. I love them, and the Mexicans drag them into first place. Drag them into first. And the Mexicans are far and away. Look, I'm not gonna say they're above America in terms of people, but God, I love Mexicans so much, and you know they're the best. All the other Latino groups, yeah, they're fine. Whatever. Puerto Ricans, Venezuelans, there might be a few out there that are not great, but like the Mexicans just easily take the baton. It's almost like if this was an actual race, like if this was a race, um, the Latinos would be probably a little bit farther behind. But then when they hand the baton off to the Mexicans would just dead sprint like a fucking cheetah and win the race for them. I love Mexicans so much. Even the stereotypes about Mexicans, they're all positive. There's not like a negative stereotype about Mexicans. The only one might be that like they're horny or whatever, but they're not horny, like white people are horny or how like Indians are horny. They're chill horny. They're just gonna like watch twerking compilations on their phone. On their fucking iPhone 5S in the year 2025. They're just gonna watch like twerking or maybe just straight up porn. And that's the extent of the horniness of the Mexicans. And then the Asians, yeah, I don't kind of just a quiet bunch, They're sneaky, very, very sneaky. All right, I'll give you guys the final ranking, and then I'm gonna be done with this episode. Very glad I was able to make this episode, without having to fucking drive 45 minutes. So let's read out this ranking. Number 1, we got Latino. 2 is Asian. 3 is African. 4 is white. 5 is American Indian. 6 is black. 7 is Aboriginal. 8 is Arab. 9 is Jew. And 10 is Indian. Once again, this was all just me trying to make as many jokes about stereotypes as humanly possible, okay? That's all this was. This was just me trying to be like an edgy 14-year-old on 4chan or to get the approval of those people. This isn't serious. It was me trying to make a funny haha. Although no one's going to take it that way, and I don't blame them, dude. I try to act like I'm one of those people that can like just take a joke no matter what. And I can take jokes about myself, but I don't know. I am a little bitch about jokes sometimes. I won't lie. So I get why people can be a little bitches about jokes, because I do it too. So I'm fully sympathetic to it. You know, it's something I experience as well. So I'm not upset about it. But I hope you guys have a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life, and I'll see you guys. When should I put this out? I'll just put this out today. Fuck it. I'll see you guys on Monday. Peace.